Looking at questions like this now, these are really quite cool because look what it says. You're going to take a point that was originally on some sort of graph, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to do something to it. You're going to transform it somehow. But look at this. This is where I get a lot of people getting confused. This particular graph is not square rooted. You're going to eventually have to put it under the radical. How do you do it? Well, there's two different ways of looking at this. I ask colleagues of mine who say, oh, you got to go step by step by step by step. Yes, that's one approach. But can we do this all in one unified step and get it all done? Yes, you can. But I want to go through it step by step by step for a simple reason, because I want to show you every little detail of what's happening to the point negative 12, 9 as we go on this journey. Okay, couple things before we start this. Number one, always factor first. If you can factor first, there are so many questions that are going to save you if you make sure you turn around and do all the factorization. Second thing, try to reduce this thing. Try to reduce what you've got, what you're playing with first. And I'll show you in the first question in A, there is a reduction to be done. Okay. The second thing, or the last thing, the third thing I should say, is always work from the inside out. Those are crucial. Those three things are just absolutely crucial. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Notice that 12, 9 was on a regular graph with no square root. So that square root's going to come back and haunt us eventually. Okay, let's not worry about it yet. First things first, is there anything to factor in this one? No, there's not. Is there something to reduce in this one? Actually, there is. Look, see the 9? That's not in the function. That's outside of the function. So if you think about this, this is like saying square root of 9 times the square root of x, f of x plus 2. Oh, super. I know what the square root of 9 is. Square root of 9 is 3. So this changes this function to be 3 times the square root of the function f of x plus 2. How sweet. That's great. Now, let's keep on going then. So what can you do to this function? Well, think about what you're doing first. If you're going to use that step-by-step kind of mentality when you're doing this, then let's go step by step and work from the inside out. Look what happens here. If you're doing a mapping, x, y, what's happening inside this? This is ignoring the square root. This is ignoring everything. I just want to see what's happening with this function. Okay, so if you think about it, yes, we have a transformation, specifically a translation of 2 units to the left. So x minus 2, what's happening to y? Absolutely nothing's happening to the y. So if you take that point, and if you remember what that point was minus 12, comma, 9, that's it right up here, minus 12 comma 9, what's going to happen to it the first step? Well, if you think about it, you're just going to subtract 2 from that. Well, minus 12 subtract 2 is minus 14, and nothing happens to the y. There's nothing underneath here that says anything happens to the y. Great, there's your first step. Is that everything? Yes. Now start working one more step outwards. If you look at this one more step outwards, the next step, of course, is the square root of the function. So you're going to take this xy, this new number, this new value here of minus 14 comma 9, and you're going to take the square root of it. Now, I got a question for you. Do you take the square root of the x? Of course not. There's nothing saying that you're taking the square root of x. The x is x. When you substitute a value of x into there, it's once you've inputted it, all the functions that go along with it, the square root becomes the square root of 9. So this guy, in fact, turns out to be x comma square root of the y. So you actually square root only the y. You're not square rooting the x because the x is an input. You don't square root the x before you put it in there. Of course not. Okay? Now, square root the 9. That becomes 3. That's your next step. Aha. Okay, let's keep on going here. What's the step after that then? Well, the step after that is, well, guess what? You got a 3 here. But what are you multiplying by 3? That's on the outside. So if you think about it, this is like saying this is an A value, isn't it? So think of the mapping again. A new mapping occurs by saying xy becomes, right? Here's your current point. This is where you're at right now at 14, 3. But what are you going to do with this? The x stays the same. You haven't done anything to the x in step 1. You looked after what happened to the x already. All right? But what's happening to the y? This is telling you this is a stretch factor of 3. The stretch is, of course, being a vertical stretch. Okay? So this becomes minus 14. 3 times 3, your new point is minus 14, 9. Now, whew, that was a lot of work to get to that point, right? Okay, can we do this in one full-fledged, I don't know, whatever name you want to call it, step? Well, yes, of course you can. Look, x, y. Go back to the original. Let's do the mapping. Let's go back to the original and see what this is all about. Okay, so do we still need to factor all of this? Well, of course we still need to factor all of this. Take out that factor. Can we simplify it? Yes, we can. This is still 3 square root of f of x plus 2. That's still there. Okay, now let's start thinking about it. What did we do to the x? What we did to the x simply is x minus 2. That's it. Throughout the whole thing, there's no other x's to be done here. You just took care of it right there, boom, done. Now, let's start thinking about the y's now. In the y, think about all of the things that you did for the y. First things first is there's nothing to do with the y inside here. There was no number on the outside. There's no number to do anything. Bah, it's done. Okay? So the next step was, of course, to square root the y. Right? All you had to do is square root the y at that point. Now that you've taken care of the square root, multiply it by 3. Boom. Done. That's what you did. So if you think about it, we had a point of minus 14.9. Let's see, from this original point, which we know was minus 12.9, let's see if this actually worked. Put in minus 12, comma 9 here, and let's see if it worked. Okay, minus 12, minus 2, minus 14. 9 goes into here. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3. Aha, there you go. You got exactly the same point in one huge swoop. The big thing to remember here then is order, 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 order. Okay? That means everything, right? Work from the inside going outwards. So let's see if we could do question B with a little bit more efficiency. All right, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. And let's go to question B. Now, if you look at question B here, again, let's go step by step. Let's work inside and let's go out, all right? So think about what we have to do. Step 1. First, x, y. Step 1. Well, if you look at this, this is on the inside. That's a B value. That's going to affect your horizontal, isn't it? Well, think about that for a second. So what's going to happen on the inside here? Well, simple. This is a 4, which means you're going to take that by a quarter. Your x value is going to be multiplied by a quarter. Anything happen inside here to the y? Nothing at all. So the y stays the same. All right, so this means that we're going to take our point, which is minus 12.9, okay? And all we're going to do is multiply it by a quarter. So multiplying 12 by a quarter, this works out to be minus 3. The y did not change. Nothing in here changed. Okay, what's the next step? Next step, of course, is taking the square root. So you're going to take this minus 3.9. Your next step is going to be taking the square root. But what are we taking the square root of? Not the x. You're taking the square root of the y. So this becomes minus 3. Aha, now I see. That's this step. So the square root is taken care of. Look at the next step. You got a minus on the outside and you got a 5 on the outside. Well, think about that. Every one of those then is some sort of function of, you got it, verticals. So this new point of minus 3, 3 is going to be vertically flipped and moved upwards 5. So your first point again is still going to be minus 3, but now you're going to vertically flip this to become minus 3, right? So that becomes now minus 3, and you're going to add 5 to that for a total here of 2. So your new point is minus 3, 2. Can we do this in one swoop? Let's write out the whole thing. Instead of going step by step, let's write out the whole one swoop. Okay, so let's go back to this guy and let's look at see what's happening. So think about it. Your XY. What's happening to your XY? First off, yup, there's your wonderful stretch factor of 1/4 horizontally. Okay? You've taken care of this guy now. That guy's all done. Think about now what's happening to the Y. First things that's happening to the Y is you're square rooting it. Second thing that happens to the Y is you're making it a negative. And the last thing that happens to the Y is you're adding 5 to the outside. Notice how it's not happening inside the radical. It's all happening outside the radical, step by step. And how do you prove that? Take a look at the original. If you look at the original, the radical's here. What's happening outside of the radical is what's happening right here. Let's see if this works, okay? So original point was minus 12, 9. Let's see if we get this. Okay, 1/4 of minus 12. Yup, we got the minus 3. Square root of 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Make it a negative. Negative 3. Add 5 to it. Makes it a 2. It worked. Holy smokes. Learning lots, hey? Okay, let's go one more step here. Let's do this last one, which has got everything in it. Oh my goodness, okay? I threw the whole ball of wax at you in this one. Here we go. Let's go. Remember the point that we were dealing with. The point that we're dealing with is minus 12, 9. Let's go step by step. Notice something? Not factored. Ah, dag nabbit. Okay, so we got to make sure that when we're dealing with the inside here, we factor that puppy. All right, so this becomes f of -1 of -4. Oops. X. Let me clean that up, make it look a little nicer. Hold on. There we go. Whoops. Okay, dealing with what's inside. Okay. This is f of -4. So divide everything out by -4. This becomes x minus 1/4. That's underneath the square root. Okay, see how it's keeping everything separate? There's a minus 3. There's a minus 3. Got it? Okay, step by step. Here we go. Okay, first things first. We're dealing with the innermost part. So think about what we're doing here. We've got a stretch horizontally of -1/4. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're taking this point, xy, we're stretching it -1/4 because, of course, being a b value, we got to flip it. Okay, and we're adding 1/4 to this. Oh my goodness, that's just gross. Okay, the y, there's nothing underneath here says to do anything to the y. So let's just leave the y the way it is. With me? Groovy. Let's go. Take this point, minus 12, 9. Here it is. Throw it in there. Well, 1/4 of minus 12, so minus 1/4 of minus 12 is positive 3. 3 plus 1/4, that's 3 1/4. Well, that's simple enough to do, ain't it? Yeah, nothing happened to the y, so guess what? It's still there at 9. Now, we've taken care of everything here. We've done all the stuff underneath the radical. Next point is then, think about it. The next point then is to take this xy here, which is 3 1/4, comma 9, there's your xy, and guess what? Square root it. So this becomes, look at that, 3 1/4 square root the 9 becomes 3 1/4, 3. Lastly, look at our stretch, minus 3. So it's not only a stretch, it's a reflection over the x-axis as well. And then we have a minus 3 as well. Holy smokes, think of all the craziness we got now. Not so bad at all. So we're going to take this point, 3 1/4, comma 3, that one here, our new point, and look what we're doing. Nothing to the x because we've looked after that already, right? But we're doing something to the y. We're multiplying it by -3. So this is going to be -3 times our y value, which is 3. And we're going to subtract the 3 from that as well. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're left with 3 1/4, which hasn't changed for a while now, -3 times 3, which is -9, minus 3, which is a whole rockin' -12. And that's our new point. Oh my goodness. Can we do this in one fell swoop? Why not? Recall what the formula was. It was -3 f of, remember, we factor out the -4, giving us an x minus 1/4, right? -3. Okay, here we go. Let's try. Our xy mapping becomes, think of what's underneath here first. X is -1/4, x plus 1/4, comma. Think of now what happens to the y. The first thing that happened to the y was the square root of y, multiplied by -3, subtract a 3. There's the mapping. And one swoop. Holy smokes, that's incredible. Let's see if it works. Please let it work. Our number here was -12, comma 9. Let's go. Think about it. -12, 1/4 of -12 is 3. 3 plus 1/4, yup, 3 1/4. Beautiful. Let's go to the next one. Take the 9. First thing you want to do is pop it in right there. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 times -3 is -9. Minus 3, -12. And lo and behold, it worked. So I gave you 2 different strategies here. A step-by-step process or one fell swoop. What an incredible question.